Hi everybody, welcome to Bangkok International Airport and today you're going to join me on two Etihad business class flights, both on the 787. We're going to go from here in Bangkok to Abu Dhabi and then from Abu Dhabi back to London Heathrow. Now I'm going to show you the two lounges, the lounge here and more importantly Etihad's flagship lounge in its relatively new terminal and its home of course Abu Dhabi International Airport. Now I've been lucky enough to fly Etihad Business Class a couple of times in the last 12 months. I was really impressed, so I'm intrigued to find out just how I find the next 18 hours. I've read some pretty poor reviews online during my research for this video about Etihad. There's been talk of things like cost cutting, people have used phrases like European standards of service, one of the poorer Middle Eastern carriers. Some of the seats which we will look at are allegedly awful. So I'm really interested to find out if it is that bad. I'm looking forward to joining me. The seats are important because the aircraft that we're about to get on here at Bangkok has a slightly odd business class configuration where some of the seats are backward facing. Now I had originally booked a backward facing seat on the aisle deliberately in order to kind of prove whether it was good or bad. But I've just checked in and certainly my first experience of Etihad has been really positive. The check-in agent was absolutely lovely. I think she worked probably for a contractor. She wasn't Etihad staff, but nevertheless she was really friendly, really helpful, really polite. And she actually said to me, you have a backward facing seat, would you like a forward facing seat? Because she said some people do not like the aisle seats that face back. And she showed me this seat map, so she allowed me to choose which seat I wanted, and she effectively recommended that I change to a forward seating window seat. Now I do have fast track security, I've been given a lounge invitation, so let's go through fast track security, let's get ourselves to the lounge and see what that's like. Well, I have to say, Etihad have got things off to a pretty good start. They give you an invite here for the lounge, and then they point you towards this fast track security area, and it's so impressive. It's completely separate from the normal security, and there was literally 3 other people there with about 5 lanes open. It's not unlike the British Airways first class facility at the end of Terminal 5. Only better because there's hardly anybody here. The staff were really friendly, and that then takes you through to passport control. I could use the e-gates to scan my passport, and then it's about a 5-minute walk to the lounge. Now we're in the Coral Lounge, but interestingly it's got 2 bits to it, and we, Etihad, have obviously paid an additional fee because as an Etihad business class passenger you actually get access to what they call the first class area of the lounge. Now I'll be honest, it is a little bit dated, this lounge. I've just had some food which is buffet style. There's a bar area where they serve cocktails. I did ask if they do champagne and they said sorry, they'd run out. I asked for a glass of ice to go with my Coke and they pointed me to a machine, so some elements of the service are perhaps a little bit lacking. Etihad had definitely done all they could to make me feel like I was a premium passenger before I'd even set foot on one of their aircraft. My only grumble was that as I walked to the gate I noticed that there are 2 further Coral lounges right by our departure gate. I looked in both and they were considerably more modern and nicer looking than the one I had used. On arrival at the gate, a member of staff checked my boarding pass and passport and, because I was in business, actually escorted me down to board the aircraft. On boarding the aircraft I was greeted by the friendly cabin manager and directed to my seat, 12A at the back of the business class section and backing onto a galley which, incidentally, created no noise that I could hear. The cabin in my view has a nice calm ambience and the alternate rows of backward facing seats do not immediately jump out at you. These trademark lamps add a touch of elegance. Our aircraft is a 2-class configured 787 Dreamliner 900. I'm going to talk about the forward versus backward facing seat issue during the next flight. The crew were attentive and before takeoff we were offered a pre-takeoff drink from orange juice, water, lemon and mint juice or Prosecco. I chose both Prosecco and the lemon drink, the latter having a nice blend of sweet and sour. I was intrigued by the use of the word Prosecco. I had expected champagne. and whilst I'm a long way from being an expert, my first taste confirmed a slightly sweet Prosecco. They then came round with a hot towel served directly from a large tray, as opposed to individually as Saudia do. A cabin crew member then asked if I needed help operating my seat and showed me the mattress topper pad. My meal order was taken and I was asked when I would like to dine, plus request for my post-takeoff drink. I chose the meze, chicken and then banana cake and, sad though it sounds, a good old cup of tea after takeoff as I was planning to go to sleep. I explored the storage options, which are decent and include a place to put things here to your side between the seat and the fuselage. The cabin crew had pointed out where my headset was and I gave the IFE a go. One of Etihad's big selling points is the range of entertainments on its EBOX system, and it certainly does impress. The headphones are of good quality, they have an element of noise cancellation and nice sound quality. You can control the TV either by directly touching the screen or by using the remote to the side here. The power options are slightly more limited than I've seen. A single 3-pin plug socket tucked down to your side, plus 2 standard USB charging ports which worked but appeared to charge my phone and camera very slowly. I decided it was time to explore the Amenity kit. It contains hand and body lotion, lip balm and face mist, plus a toothbrush and paste kit and the all-important eye mask and earplugs. These are by eSpa, who partner with Etihad. I was surprised to see no socks, but this was explained shortly after when the crew came round offering slippers. We'd pushed back on time and after a long taxi were airborne into a clear night with good views over Bangkok suburbs. As soon as the seatbelt sign went out, I decided to check out the bathroom and film it for you. Here we go. And when I returned to my seat, a mug of tea and some nuts were waiting. I put the seat into bed mode and was immediately impressed by how long it is, and also the ends don't taper, so I could comfortably fit in my 6-foot 1.5 inch frame with room to spare. Hold on to that thought because it's relevant when we talk about our second flight and seat. This is where the window front facing seat did come into its own. Some passengers had elected to dine immediately after takeoff, and I was not disturbed at all during their meal service. There are no obvious ridges on the bed, the provided duvet is large and warm, and I slept comfortably for over 3 hours until woken by the cabin manager for dinner. My starter arrived on a tray complete with tablecloth, and the meze didn't disappoint. It lived up to Qatar's equivalent. The main course chicken replaced an empty starter plate and was beautifully presented and tasted just as good. I was offered tea or coffee with my banana dessert but declined. Desserts are my least favourite part of the meal, but I did manage to taste it and confirm it would have been delicious had I not been full. The cabin manager then checked in to see if I'd enjoyed my flight, and we landed early in a still dark Abu Dhabi. It was about a 5-minute walk from our aircraft to the transfer security area. I was a little bit surprised and disappointed to see that there is no priority section for business class passengers, or first class for that matter. So if the area was busy, you would have a bit of a wait, which I think you might find a little bit frustrating, but that's the only downside I've seen so far of the overall Etihad experience. The walk to the lounge is about 5 minutes, it's really well signed, it's easy to find, and I think you would struggle to say anything other than wow when you came into this lounge. It is, I think, probably the best lounge that I have been in. Now, I've been lucky enough to be in the British Airways Gold Lounge, I've been in the Qatar Airways Business Lounge in Doha, and I think this is quite a lot better. Particularly the Doha Qatar Airways Lounge has a really good reputation, but I sometimes think it's a little bit too open and a little bit big, and perhaps a little bit cold feeling, whereas this has got a real premium feel to it. Now, it's spread across 3 levels. There's food on the bottom and the upper level. It's a kind of buffet style. I don't know if they do cooking for you. I just wasn't hungry, so I didn't try it out, but what I saw of the food looked really good.
The staff are really helpful and very friendly. The service is excellent. There are showers and there is a napping room. Now the showers, there was nobody else using the showers when I was there. There's about, I would say, about 10 showers, so I just went straight in, and as you can see, it's a really nice facility. The napping room, likewise, I think there was only one other person using it. If they are full, then they've got a pager system, which means that you can take a pager, and when one becomes free, they'll call you. I think my advice, I think there were about 7 altogether. I think my advice would be, if you get a choice, choose one away from the door, because you do hear, I had one right by the door, and I know it's a first world problem, but I could hear the receptionist talking and the phone ringing and all that sort of stuff. But just walking around this lounge, I mean, it is virtually empty, so this is obviously a relatively quiet time, but even so, I think it would absorb an awful lot of people really easily. The bar is a lovely area. They serve this champagne, which looked very nice, and they've also got a couple of types of draft beer. So yeah, a really high quality premium facility. And I think if you had the opportunity to do a 3 or 4 hour transfer here, you wouldn't be disappointed, because this would give you something to look forward to in between your flights.
I was full of anticipation following my amazing lounge experience and made my way to the gate. After a random security check, I sat in the spacious gate room until business class boarding was called about 45 minutes before departure. This aircraft is another 787-900, but this time configured with 3 classes, including a 12-seat first class section right at the front, a 2-row business class section before the second door, and then a further 5 rows of business class before economy. We boarded through the front door, and as I was seated in a larger rear business cabin, I had to walk through the first class section plus the small business cabin and past the galley to get to my seat. I had a rear facing seat this time and elected to stick with it so I could assess for myself the negative hype about these seats. My initial thought was to ask myself why passengers seated in the rear business cabin were not boarded via the second door. It would, after all, have avoided having to trek through 2 other cabins. I got myself settled and was greeted by a menu and amenity kit, although this time the amenity kit was a different shape. The cabin crew offered a pre-takeoff drink, and this time the wine was champagne rather than Prosecco. I actually opted for the lemon mint again, as it was only 7:30 in the UK. Once boarding was complete, I was asked for my post-takeoff drink order, but not my meal choices. This time there was no offer to guide me through the seat controls or explain the mattress pad. The seat controls, TV, IFE and headset are all a replica of the previous aircraft. The amenity kit, although a different shape, included the same items, and we were once again offered slippers. Let's focus on 3 things from this flight: the seat, service and the food. Service on this flight was different, and not in a good way. I have a theory as to why this is the case, which I'll share in due course. After a particularly long taxi, we took off and enjoyed nice views of a sunny Abu Dhabi. Let's talk about the thing which raises the most controversy first, and that's this backward facing seat. I'll start by saying that, whilst in my view, what borders on negative hysteria is misplaced, these seats do have a surprising downside. It's true that the forward-facing seats offer more privacy whether you sit in a window seat or one of the pairs in the middle. However, the backward seats have a sliding privacy screen, and so you cannot see other passengers in business class. If you sit in row 10, then you do have a direct view into the economy cabin when the curtain is not drawn. But on the other hand, you have your back to passengers boarding economy as they walk through this cabin. I slept for a solid 3 hours despite being by the aisle. And if you're a couple and can't get a pair of the forward-facing seats in the middle, then backward-facing seats either side of the aisle might be an option for you. I mentioned a downside, and it's this. These seats appear to be slightly shorter than their forward-facing equivalent, and, furthermore, the footwell felt to me like it narrowed more than my previous seat. See what I mean? Next time I fly Etihad Business, I'd be keen to avoid the backward-facing seats, but they are not a showstopper. At least not in my view. Finally, one upside of sitting facing backwards is that, in the very unlikely event of a crash, they are proven to be overall safer. Now, the service on this flight was a definite downgrade from the Bangkok leg. The polish was missing in a number of areas. There was no offer to explain the seat or mattress this time. I'd requested champagne as my post-takeoff drink and it arrived with nuts, but there was no offer to top it up, unlike the previous flight. Dining choices were not taken before takeoff, and it took a full 45 minutes after takeoff for them to do so. I was keen to sample the famous Etihad steak sandwich as a snack before sleeping, and explained to the cabin crew that this was my request, as long with my full meal to be served as near to Heathrow as possible. I selected the burrata, short ribs and chocolate fondant. The cabin attendant duly noted it all down and said that it might take up to 30 minutes for the sandwich to arrive. In reality, after 45 minutes there was still no sign of it, and I wandered to the galley where the crew were sitting chatting. It took a further 20 minutes for it to arrive. It was as good as the reviews suggest. After a nap, I went to the galley about 2 hours before landing to request a mug of tea, and the cabin attendant asked if I'd like my meal. The starter arrived about 15 minutes later on a tray, and I was asked what I would like to drink. I selected the Portuguese red, which was excellent. When my main arrived, it was placed on the tray on top of the cutlery, and left like that for me to move. Both the burrata and short ribs were full of flavour, and I was looking forward to trying the chocolate fondant. As the cabin attendant cleared away my tray, including my half-finished wine, she said that they no longer have the chocolate fondant and would I like the blueberry cake in its place. Now, I have no complaints if my first choice is not available. I understand that it's wasteful to load way more meals than will actually be used. However, in this case, the cabin attendant had noted my dessert request 4 hours previously, and I saw her mark it off her inventory, so clearly they'd made an error in the galley. I had to ask for another glass of wine to replace the removed one. Now, I'm a great believer that the cabin manager sets the tone for the service. On the previous flight, the manager was a fundamental part of business class right from the word go. We hardly saw the cabin manager on this flight, and it showed. Now, it's possible that my cabin attendant was either new or just having an off day, but my suspicion is that much of the service focus on these 3 class flights goes to first class, and as a result business class takes second place. The quality of the food was still very high, and my champagne and wine were of a good quality. The Wi-Fi on Etihad works well. I'm a member of their rewards program, which means I get free messaging, and it functions consistently effectively. My neighbour on the Bangkok leg had paid for the full package and managed to stream live not 1 but 2 football matches. Shortly before we started our descent, a cabin attendant offered priority immigration passes to non-UK passport holders. We arrived at Terminal 4 about 10 minutes early. I paid £1,253 for my one-way flight from Bangkok to London, booked direct with Etihad, and was credited with 14,000 Etihad miles, booked about 10 days in advance. Whilst not a bargain, compared certainly to my Saudia flight in the other direction, it was cheaper by about £300 than a business class fare with a comparable carrier. My overall impression of Etihad is still generally good. I felt like a premium passenger until the moment I stepped on the flight to London, where I got the impression that I was second tier. Saudia beats both Etihad and Qatar in my view for the genuine friendliness and welcome, but the overall product on Etihad is slightly better than Saudia. Qatar, on the other hand, especially with their Q suites, leads both airlines, and their service is consistently good, if perhaps a little robotic at times. Etihad's lounge at Abu Dhabi is absolutely outstanding. Look out for my review of Saudia Business Class and upcoming reviews of British Airways Premium Economy and Malaysian Airlines Business Class service. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.